Okay, good morning, everybody. Bill Lester here. I'm with University of Florida IFAS Extension Service in Hernando County, and welcome to this week's virtual plant clinic. My regular co-host Lily Browning is not here today. She is on vacation. I think she's still up in Virginia. I'm not really sure what she's doing. But go ahead, and if you have any questions, please feel free to go ahead and put them in the comments. So I'm still here today to take any questions that you might have. Let me go ahead and get into the question thing here. Okay, it looks like maybe we're not broadcasting on all of our Facebook pages here. Let me go ahead and see if I can fix that really quickly here. Okay, good morning. I think now we're on all of our different Facebook pages and Facebook channels and also on YouTube Live. I see three little green check marks, which is always a good sign. Big red X's aren't quite as good. So good morning, everyone. Like I said to the other groups already, that my regular co-host Lily Browning is not here with me this week. She's on vacation. So it's just me and you. So if any of you have any questions, please go ahead and feel free to put them in the chat box. I did want to be here today in case we have any questions. If you'd like, you could email me pictures and questions, and I can go ahead and show them to everybody. Let me go ahead and put my email address up here. So there's my email address. If you'd like to send me a picture or a question, we can go ahead and share that and answer the question for everybody. Because it seems like people, a lot of the problems that people have in their lawn and landscape and vegetable gardens tend to be the same thing. And it kind of follows the calendar, and a little bit, every summer we have similar problems. Every winter we obviously have freezes and those kind of problems. Right now, a problem that we've been seeing at our office, and we're probably going to have more problems with, is too much water for certain plants. So if you have hedges and bushes and flowering plants in your yard, and you also have an irrigation system, and we are getting, I don't know how many inches of rain per week, and that depends on exactly where you live. I live in Spring Hill, and gosh, the other day I think we got another 3 or 4 inches of rain. We're getting probably 10 inches of rain per week, just about. That is more than enough to make your grass green and grow like crazy and make everything else grow. You don't need to run the irrigation on top of that, because what happens is many of your plants stay wet. The ground turns to mud, basically, and you're trying to grow pine tree and oak tree, hedge bushes, flowering bushes in mud. And many plants are going to suffer because of that, and they get stressed out. They get a lot of root damage, and then they start to have problems with root rots, because there's a lot of fungi and bacteria naturally in the soil that your plant or bush or tree can protect itself from. But when you add way too much water and not enough air down there, because the water pushes the air out, and your plant is sitting in the mud, and you run your sprinkler system too, which just makes it even wetter, we start to see a lot of problems, especially with hedge bushes. And my guess is we're going to see those problems all the way through the end of summer. I got a photo and an email yesterday about a loropetalum, which is a very attractive, normally used as a hedge bush, but they had a couple of very large ones that were grown more in a tree form or tree shape. So what had happened with this one is it wasn't looking very healthy. All the leaves were kind of drooping, a little bit like it was way too dry. And that can't be because of all the rain we've gotten. Nothing is very dry out there. So what is probably happening with that loropetalum is it's starting to have a root rot problem. They did email me back and they said that it's been there for at least 15 years, which is kind of a long time for a lot of landscape plants. Believe it or not, a lot of them have a lifespan of anywhere from 10 to 20 years. So that one was definitely reaching old age and probably suffering from a root rot problem because the soil it's growing in is just way too wet all the time. So that's something that you really want to watch out for. We can't do anything to stop the rain or control it or cover your house up, when you've gotten too much rain. I guess you could, but it's going to be pretty expensive and your neighbors might not be too keen on it. But we can control how much extra water that we add. So go out there, everybody, and if you live anywhere in Central Florida or an area where you're getting plenty of rain, find the timer box for your outdoor irrigation, open the box up, find the little switch that says on and off, and switch it to off. And you should be able to just keep the whole system off. My guess is for the rest of summer. So we should be getting plenty of regular rain till the end of summer. So you're not going to have to run your irrigation. So if y'all have any questions for me, please feel free to put them in the comments or send me an email. There's my email address. For anybody who lives here in Hernando County, if you ever have a question for our office, for myself, or from one of our master gardeners, here is our phone number. Feel free to call. If you call, you'll most likely get in touch with Teresa, and she can answer a lot of questions. And if it's something that needs to be forwarded to me or somebody else, we can take care of that. If you have questions or problems and you want to put together a small commercial farm, we have a multi-county agent that can help you with that. His name is Matt Smith, and we're happy to put you in touch with him. If you have a pasture or any farm animals and you have any questions about that, get in touch with us. We'll put you in touch with our multi-county pasture and farm animal agent, Laura, and she's more than happy to help you with that. So no matter what kind of question, it may not be something I can answer, but we do have somebody here that could answer it for you. So everybody looks pretty quiet today. If anybody wants to say good morning or put in a comment, everything should be working here. So let's see what else is happening in people's lawns and landscapes. What other kind of questions have we been getting here? We always get long questions. It seems a lot of people have difficulties growing a lawn here in Florida. And I think part of the problem is if you move here from another state, wherever you move from, you had a totally different kind of grass growing there than what you have growing here. And you're going to have to manage them differently, care for them differently. Turf grass here in Central Florida, whether it's St. Augustine or Bahia, a few people grow Bermuda. Few people have centipede. Centipede is much more common further north in Florida and north of there. Some people have zoysia, and zoysia is really difficult to manage and care for and keep it healthy. No matter what kind of grass you grow, it does well from spring through fall. It's going to turn brown and die back in the winter. That's totally normal. A lot of people think, my grass looks bad. I have a big dead spot. I have some kind of other issue with it. Let's see, what do I do to fix it? I know I'll go out there and water it some more and I'll fertilize it. That is rarely the correct answer. And a lot of times when people do rush out and just water it and fertilize it, depending on what the exact problem is, you may be making it worse. So it's very important that you figure out what your problem is first before you go out there and start taking steps to try to cure it. Because a lot of times you might be taking the wrong steps. And I know people like to kind of throw everything they have at it and just hope, oh, if I spray it with this insecticide I had in my shed, if I fertilize it, if I water it a couple more times, maybe that'll magically fix the problem and I won't have to worry about figuring out what it was. That that rarely works. Sometimes it does. Sometimes just by dumb luck, you took a step that actually solved the problem that you have, whatever the problem was. But I know I just saw a post on a Facebook gardening group yesterday, and somebody said they had a problem with a plant, and they said they had tried spraying an insecticide on it. They sprayed a fungicide. They put down Epsom salts. They even ordered ladybugs, thinking that would fix the problem. And what is my problem? And they put pictures up, but I'm thinking, why did you try solving the problem before you even knew what it was? That makes no sense. So be very careful to figure out what your problem is first, get the appropriate controls or solutions for it, go ahead and try them, then stop and reassess. It's like, is the situation getting better? Is it getting worse? Is my grass completely dying now, or my plant? Do I need to go back and take another look at, did I diagnose it correctly? These are all very, very important steps you need to take before you ever go to your shed or your garage and pull out an insecticide or a fungicide or fertilizer or anything else like that. So those are all helpful hints for any problem that you may be dealing with in your lawn and garden. Good morning, Austin. How are you? Austin from up there in, where does Austin live? I think Michigan, way up north. So I'm not sure if Austin's getting as much rain up there as we've been getting here. But I think I saw on the TV during the time period when the tropical storm / hurricane came through, over that full week, we got about 12 inches of rain here in Spring Hill. And that's about right. We've been getting basically a big rain or a gully washer almost every day. And my grass is growing like crazy. And it's funny because just a month or two ago, it was looking totally dead. It was brown. Everybody was in a panic over, oh, I need to be able to water more, my lawn's going to die. And now with all the rain, problem solved. My lawn is green. My Bahia grass looks really, really good, and it's really filled in. And it is growing like crazy. And now I have to get out there really about every 5 days to cut it. Seems like as soon as I'm done cutting it, a day or two later, it looks like it needs to get. Okay, Austin's from Green Bay. Couldn't remember. I knew that Austin was from way up north, the Great White North. And up there in Green Bay, they had heavy wind and rain yesterday and 2 inches of rain with hail. Yeah, we had a rainstorm a few days ago where we got about 5 or 10 minutes of hail. I started hearing a little tap, 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 and looked outside, and I could see the little tiny ice balls hitting the ground and bouncing up, which is scary because that could be very, very damaging to cars and houses and screen porches and pool screening and gardens and everything. We don't want to see a lot of hail. But fortunately, ours was short-lived, only lasted a few minutes, then stopped. And Austin brought in all the plants under shelter and the tomatoes against the to protect them from the hail. That's good. That's always good thinking, but a lot of times hail always pops up unexpectedly, and you don't have a chance to run out there and drag everything under protection. So that's great that you were able to do that. I didn't worry about it. I don't have a whole lot going on in the garden right now, and everything that is growing out there is very durable. Vegetable garden, the tomato, I do still have some peppers out there, but they're wrapping up also. They're going to be done pretty shortly. Here in Central Florida, it's middle of July. It's just about that time to start tomato and pepper and eggplant plants for fall. So if you like to start your vegetables from seed, now's a good time to start seeds for tomatoes, peppers, any kind of sweet peppers, hot peppers, whatever it might be, eggplants. And that's really about it that you're going to start early from seed to grow transplants to put in the garden. You can do it as early as middle of August. I try to wait till beginning of September. It doesn't really feel cooler the beginning of September. It's still pretty hot outside, but technically the days are getting shorter. and it's going to be a little bit less stressful on your vegetable plants when you do put them out. Now, you need to prepare your vegetable garden, because before you know it, it will be mid-August, early September, and you can plant green beans, yellow beans, pole beans. Shortly after that, snow peas. Shortly after that, you're going to be starting seeds and transplants for broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, Brussels sprouts if you want to try growing them, all those different cool season winter things. So even though you really can't plant or grow a whole lot today, other than you can still plant okra, and you can still put in sweet potatoes, and you can put in Seminole pumpkins, but that's really about it, other than a lot of unusual specialty tropical crops, winged beans and Malabar spinach and a few other things like that that are a little bit less well known. Before you know it, it's going to be fall, and it's going to be time to be putting all those things in, and you don't want to fall behind and start missing the ideal planting times to put things in. So it looks like Austin's peppers are getting big up there up north. So that's just another example of growing seasons are totally different up north than they are here in Central Florida. So it's totally different here. And if you try to follow those up north planting schedules down here in Florida, things are not going to work out very well at all. Good morning, Cindy. How are you? Nice to see you here today. And yes, for anybody who missed that at the very beginning, Lily is off again this week. She is off on vacation. She should be here next week, and I may not be. And then the week after that, I'm on vacation. And believe it or not, I will be in the mountains of North Georgia for a couple of days. But if I have really strong internet up there, I may just pop in anyway. So I may try popping in live, you know, kind of on the spot from North Georgia to share what's going on up there. Hopefully it'll be a little bit cooler up there than it is here, although the heat really doesn't bother me a whole lot. I'm used to the heat of Central Florida. I dislike the cold a lot more than the heat. So if anybody has any lawn and garden questions, please feel free to throw them in. And Austin, one day we will take a road trip up to Green Bay. We have an RV now, and I'm going further and further with it. So Green Bay is going to be quite a haul. And trust me, if I go to Green Bay, it will be during the summer. It will not be during the winter, because I can't handle that much cold anymore. So anybody has any questions, please feel free to go ahead and add them in. And if anybody's ever curious about what kind of classes I have coming up, or Lily has coming up, or anybody else at our office does, if you just go to www.hernandoextension.com, that is a live feed that is fed from our Facebook page, but you don't have to be on Facebook to go to this. Just go to that web address, that URL, and you're going to see a list of all the different classes we have coming up, a description of them, all the information, the date, the time, whether we're doing it on Zoom or Facebook Live or some other way, because we have a lot of different ways we can share these classes now because of technology, and we're always, experimenting with more things also. So that's a really good way to kind of follow what we're doing and what's going on. And it looks like Dan has a question here, or a comment, and he says the Cuban oregano, Suriname spinach, and cranberry hibiscus are doing great. Yes, those are a couple of, I call them kind of specialty crops and tropical plants. I have a Cuban oregano, and I had it growing in a small hanging basket. It did okay. I would get some leaves on it. I was able to harvest them and use them anytime I was making, Cuban pork or anything like that. I transplanted it to a large pot, a very large pot that sits on the ground. And oh my gosh, it's growing like a weed. It's huge. It's all over the place now. I have more Cuban oregano than I can ever possibly eat. Some of the Suriname spinach, and there's a few other types of vegetables that are called spinach, are plants that look like spinach, but technically they're not in the same plant family. You pick the leaves and eat them like you would spinach. Some people love them, some people hate them. Maybe it's kind of an acquired taste, but they could do well during the heat of summer. And cranberry hibiscus is the type of hibiscus that you pick the calyx, the base of the flower after it's done flowering, and you can make teas out of it, and you can make a cranberry sauce substitute out of it. I've never tried doing that, but I know it's becoming very popular. And cranberry hibiscus, it's an attractive plant. It flowers. It gets red flowers. It looks like, just another attractive hibiscus in the landscape. They grow like weeds also. They do really, really well. And they don't care if it gets hot and wet and steamy and rainy. They're going to do just fine this time of year. And Dan grows them mostly for color, and they can be tilled easily. So, yeah, those are all really good choices because we are limited here in Central Florida in the heat of summer. We do have things that we can grow, but it's not a lot. And many of the really traditional vegetables, the beans, the squash, the tomatoes, everything else, you're going to have a really, really difficult time growing them. And if you can keep the plants alive and you're able to get them a flower, it's really difficult to get quality produce or food off of them this time of year. With some of them, if you can just keep them alive through the summer, they'll come back. And in the fall, once the days get a little shorter, starts to cool off a little bit, the peppers and eggplants, if you keep them alive during summer, will start to grow again. They'll flush out again. They'll flower, and you get a whole second crop. Just the hard part is getting them to survive the summer sometimes. Sometimes the insects and diseases and wetness just kind of gets the best of them, and it may be best for you to start fresh from new seeds again. So good morning, Sharon. How are you? And Sharon says, when should I plant greens from seed outside in the Brooksville, Spring Hill area? It's a very good question. And I assume that if you're asking about any kind of greens, so things like collards, turnip greens, mustard greens, kale, and kale's become very, very popular in recent years, very healthy for you. Swiss chard, which I grow every year. It's really easy to grow and very easy to take care of also. Lettuce, or any kind of green leafy, lettucey kind of things. Anything from dandelion greens to endive and escarole. They're a little strong and not really popular, but some people still like them. So for any of those green leafy things, the best time to start them is going to be in the fall when the weather starts to cool off. I know people that start as early as September 1st. I like to wait until October 1st, because if you plant them and right after you plant them by seed outdoors, if it gets really, really hot for a couple days or a week, you're going to have a really hard time with germination. Very few of them are going to come up. So I have better luck if I wait until the beginning of October. But the nice thing is, from beginning of October on, all the way through about February or so, you can just plant more and more and more and more. And if you go outside and you plant a little bit the beginning of each month during the winter, you're going to have a continuous harvest. You're going to have some that are ready to pick, other ones that are just kind of growing, other ones that have just come up. And if you time things and practice at it, you can have continuous harvest of a lot of different vegetables all winter long. So don't think that you have to plant them all at once, because what happens is you end up having to harvest them all at once. And now you have a ton of collards or turnip greens or mustards. And if you like them, that's great. Or if you have a way to preserve them, that's great. But I know for myself, I like to have more of a continuous harvest. So I always have some when I want it for dinner, but it lasts for a long period of time. So here in Brooksville and Spring Hill, I would wait until beginning of October. You can experiment and try as early as technically as early as mid-August, although I think that's still a little bit too hot. A lot of people start beginning of September. And Dan says kale is thin but still alive now. A lot of people will keep kale and Swiss chard and collard greens going through the summer, but they don't thrive in the summer heat. They may stay alive, but they obviously aren't really happy and growing well and doing well. And sometimes the heat is going to make it taste not really good. So if you have kale and it's still growing and you're still able to pick it and eat it and enjoy it, that's great. I think a lot of times people's kale and collards and even Swiss chard, it gets to a point during the summer where it's growing and it's there, but it doesn't taste very good. And now I have caterpillars eating it and fungal leaf spot diseases. Personally, what I do is I plan on when it's done, it comes out. And then I move on to either starting another crop if I can, or if we're going into summer, I just focus on working in lots of organic matter into the empty garden, empty soil to build it up and do everything I can to get it built up for fall, and then go all in and fill the garden up and grow everything and kind of stagger it and keep things back to back to back to back all winter long. What I try to do is plan it, and it doesn't always work out that well, but I try to plan in advance so that I plant something and it grows, and when it's time for it to come out, I have something else to put in its place, either seeds or transplants I started a few weeks before that, and now they're ready to go in and take its place. So I always have things going on from about September 1st or so all the way through June 1st or June 15th. From June 15th until about September 1st, not a whole lot to do in the garden. Like we've discussed, there are a few things that you can do, but not a whole lot of choices out there. So any other comments, please feel free to throw them in. Didn't want to go on for too long this morning because, like I said, I'm here by myself, and I did want to come on here and answer any pressing questions we had from anybody and find out what things are like up there in Green Bay. And yeah, Austin, I'll make it up there one of these days. It's going to be a little while. Like I said, I'm not going to come up there and visit for Christmas or New Year's, that's for sure. Way, way too cold anymore. So let me go ahead and put my email up there once again if anybody has any questions, or if you want to send any pictures to get answers to your problems. You know, it's funny, a lot of times people will call the office, or they hop into cars and drive all the way to the office with a leaf or a bug or a sample, or they have a question about their lawn. And a lot of times, if you just take several good pictures and email them to us, you can text them to us. There's a lot of different ways you can get those pictures to us. A lot of times I can look, that the old saying is a picture is worth 1,000 words. I can look at a picture and tell a lot. I can a lot of times tell you what kind of plant or bush you have, what the problem is, and what kind of steps you could take to help solve the problem. And there are times when if something is obviously completely dead and not coming back to life, but you're not really sure, is there something you can do or should do? A lot of times we can tell that from a picture also. So please feel free to send us pictures. We can answer emails and pictures all day long. That's very, very easy. And that way you don't have to get dressed and put on shoes and drive all the way here to the office. You can just shoot us an email. We can email back. We can go back and forth. If we do need a physical sample to look at it, we can tell you that, and you can get one to us. So if you have a question, it's easier than ever for us to answer your questions anymore. So feel free to shoot me an email. Trust me, I get emails all day long. all day long. I get a lot of emails. And of course, be sure to follow us on Facebook. If you are watching us on Facebook today, I'm sure you already do. If you're watching us on YouTube Live, feel free to follow us on Facebook also. We have a lot of good information. We always post every time we have a class or a workshop or anything else special coming up. We put that on there. So you can, that's a good way to find out about it first, is from following us on Facebook. And if you live here locally in the Brooksville, Spring Hill area, and you haven't had a chance to go to our Master Gardener Nursery yet, please be sure to do so. The address is 19490 Oliver Street in Brooksville. And Oliver Street is a little road that runs alongside of the Hernando County Fairgrounds, which are situated right on State Road 41, right between Brooksville and Spring Hill. And you drive down Oliver Street, and we are on the left-hand side. If you get to the end of the road, which is where the animal control office is, you went too far. And our master gardeners are there Wednesday mornings and Saturday mornings from 8:30 in the morning until 11. During the winter, they're there till noon, but now during the summer, only 11 because it gets really hot by then. And except for days when the weather is really, really bad. So when the tropical storm came through, tropical storm / hurricane, we shut down for the day. If we have really, really heavy rains, we'll shut down for the day. But if the weather is nice like it is today, we're open Wednesday and Saturdays. They have a great selection of native plants and Florida-friendly plants, and they are there to answer your lawn and garden questions also. So they're a wealth of information and advice. So, guys, I do not see any other questions here, and I think that's about all I had for everybody. Like I said earlier, hopefully everything is working correctly on all 3 of our Facebook pages. It looks like it is. Keep in mind, the service that we use is called StreamYard, and we do a broadcast live through Facebook and through YouTube, and they're all funny. And they all have glitches, and sometimes we have technical difficulties. So your patience is always appreciated. We'll always keep fighting it until we get on here live. So here we have one more question from somebody on our Facebook group. I have a friend that is slowly clearing land for a hydroponics greenhouse. Nothing soon, but do you have someone there that is familiar with this type of gardening if he has any issues? Yes, we do. What you should tell your friend to do is start by looking online and looking up University of Florida hydroponics or University of Florida greenhouse, or going to it used to be called EDIS, EDIS, and you should still be able to find that through Google. The new name, though, is, and let me see if this works. I'll go to Google, and I put in Ask IFAS, and the very top thing that comes up on Google is Ask IFAS powered by EDIS. And the web address is edis.ifas.ufl.edu. But if you just Google that and go to Ask IFAS, let me go ahead and do that. You go and you see a very nice web page here. On the very front is a big box that says, what can we help you with? So if I type in greenhouse, it comes up with a whole list of different documents and fact sheets and websites, all run by the University of Florida. The top one is Florida Greenhouse Vegetable Production Handbook, which would be a fantastic starting resource for anybody putting in a greenhouse or trying to grow hydroponic vegetables, and greenhouse ventilation, exclusion methods for managing greenhouse cucumber production of greenhouse tomatoes. So we have a ton of information online. So tell your friend to go ahead and Google ask IFAS and go to that University of Florida website and start looking through it. Now, as they go along, if they have something they get stuck on, they find a bug that they have no idea what it is, or their plants are dying from some disease, they don't know what it is, they have a specific question, then tell them to go ahead and shoot me an email, send pictures, stop by the office. That's when you kind of follow up with us. And if I can't answer it, I know other people that can answer it. So start with looking online, start with kind of educating yourself as much as you can on a new topic, something like greenhouse or hydroponics. And then we're here for the more specific questions. Because if you come into our office and you come and knock on my office door and say, hey, Bill, I want to build a greenhouse. What do I need to know? It's like, a lot. We could sit here all day long and not even scratch the surface. So you need to do your homework for starters and learn as much as you can. And it's not that difficult. Trust me, if you follow, University of Florida information, it's not that difficult to get started with a greenhouse, to get started with hydroponics. Keep in mind, growing plants is a lot of trial and error and experimenting, and you try something, and if it works, that's great. You're going to do it again. If it fails, that's great. You learn something. You need to figure out why it failed and what you could do to make it not fail the next time. It's all a learning experience. And if you kind of stick with it and keep trying, you will be successful eventually. And we're here to help you be successful. So Cindy, you are very welcome. Sharon, ask about the old farmers planting advice, planting according to the phases of the moon. I've never looked into that closely. I don't think there's a whole lot of science behind it. Some people swear by it, and they take it as the Bible, and they would never consider planting except according to the phases of the moon. I've never followed it, and I find that generally the weather that you encounter right after planting has a much greater effect than anything else. So, of course, here in Florida, timing is very important. If you follow proper timing, sometimes the weather doesn't cooperate. You have a hot spell, you have a cold spell, you put your tomato transplants out, and 2 weeks later you have a hurricane and 3 feet of rain. It happens. Sometimes the weather doesn't cooperate. But if you follow proper planting times, it does get you 90% of the way there. And we'll take one final question here, one final comment that's a little bit outside of my area of expertise. And Cindy asks, I don't want to put you on the spot, but do you have any comments on red tide? And it's so bad down here. Yes, Cindy, I believe you're in Pinellas County. I know that they are having problems down there. I know that if anybody is interested in where it is a problem at and how bad it is at any given beach or spot along the coast, if you go online, I believe there's a website. It's either Florida Department of Environmental Protection or possibly FWC that has a website, and they do monitor for that. Here in Hernando County, they do take, I think, weekly water tests and monitor for it. We don't have red tide currently here in Hernando County. Maybe very, very tiny detectable amount, but we don't have a problem with it here. Red tide is a problem, and there's a lot of different causes. The microorganism that causes it is natural, so it's always been here in Florida, and you'll get blooms or outbreaks sometimes in the summer, but it is generally worse now than it was, let's say 500 years ago. And there's a lot of reasons behind that. And I think the blame goes on all of us. So whatever, the exact contributing factor you want to look at, we're all adding to it. Whether it's through septic systems, whether it's through just runoff of parking lots, whether it's through excess or improperly applied turf fertilizer, commercial grower fertilizer, ranching. There's a lot of causes that go into adding extra nitrogen and phosphorus to the water, and we're all kind of responsible for it. Hopefully it'll clear up soon down there, and hopefully it won't be a really, really bad outbreak. But yeah, I feel very, very sorry for anybody who lives on the coast in areas that are affected by that. So with that, everybody, thank you so much. And please be sure to come back next week. And be sure to say welcome back to Lily, my regular co-host. Hopefully she's enjoying her vacation. She may even be watching us from up north or wherever she might be right now. So I'm not sure. She didn't comment, so she is watching. She's Facebook lurking, I think. So with that, thanks again, everybody, and you guys have a great week. And be sure to pop back on here next Thursday morning at 10 a.m. There will definitely be somebody on here next week. So we will see you then. Thank you so much, and have a great week. Bye.